Hello, dear viewer. Time to talk World Cup. Every 4 years, my passion for football hits its peak as the greatest tournament in the world returns, and every 4 years, all of soccer's faithful speculate on the possible results, especially once the group layouts have been made. Well, I have half a year of waiting to go, and my excitement grows with each passing day until the big month in Russia. Let's take a look at some of these groups and evaluate the potential for each team in my own special biased way. Group A contains the host nation, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Uruguay. Could this be the fabled group of death, folks? Hang on, let's see. 4 middle-of-the-road teams, none of which is expected to win it, and all 4 have a believable chance of making it out alive of their group. Okay, maybe except for Saudi Arabia, one of World Cup's F students. Russia gets home court advantage next year, but they didn't have to qualify to get in. They won't have the battle scars that all the other 31 teams bring with them after 3 long years of hardships. Russia hasn't been an impressive team in the sport since the 50s and 60s and the days of Lev Yashin, so I can't imagine them making it too far without some, shall we say, Korea 2002-esque antics. Russia starts in Moscow against Saudi Arabia, a game they will most certainly want to win to set the pace for the home crowd. They have only ever faced Saudi Arabia once, back in an obscure friendly in the 90s, and back then the Saudis pummeled Russia 4-2. We can't use their one game back in 1993 to evaluate today, though, and I'm positive Russia will be frantically fighting to win that opening game. I believe they're a better team on paper as well than Saudi Arabia, provided something like this doesn't happen to Russia again. They should be able to win it. Possibly with 3 points already in hand, their next game takes them to St. Petersburg and a much tougher game against Egypt, a team they've never encountered. Tough to say what would happen here. Egypt doesn't have much of a World Cup history. They've only qualified twice, and outside of Africa, they're not as strong as inside, so I'd be inclined to believe Russia has a decent shot at winning this one as well. They end their group stage journey in Samara versus Uruguay. Now, all of Russia's history in the sport against Uruguay is back from when they were still called the USSR, so all we really have to go on is a friendly from 2012 in which they tied 1-1. Uruguay is definitely the biggest, baddest boy in this group. I think if Russia doesn't have 6 points by the time they fight Uruguay, they'll definitely be eliminated. Saudi Arabia has a history of getting squashed in group stages at World Cup. Their very first World Cup was in 1994, and they had a respectable trip all the way to round of 16. But since then, it's been the aforementioned squashings, losing 4-0 against France in 1998, getting thoroughly destroyed by Germany 8-0 and by Ireland 3-0 in 2002, getting wrecked 4-0 again in 2006, this time against Ukraine. Qualifications this year, they barely qualified ahead of Australia, and only by goal differential, so I thoroughly expect this to be another 3-and-out year for them. Russia will certainly have to beat them in their first match at World Cup, and if Ukraine can put 4 past their net in Germany, Russia can do 4 in their net at home. Then they face Uruguay second in Rostov-on-Don. This is a disaster for Saudi Arabia to be forced to fight the host nation and then the strongest nation in their group's second match. There's no breathing space for them. I expect them to arrive thoroughly eliminated by the time they face Egypt last in Volgograd. Now, Egypt gets their toughest game first. Though us South American teams tend to be slow starters at these tournaments, I'm actually imagining a tie here is very possible against Uruguay. What's going to kill Egypt is the fact that their opening game is way out in the middle of nowhere in Yekaterinburg. Possibly still jet-lagged, and after a tough game against Uruguay, they'll be forced to play against the host nation in St. Petersburg, which definitely favors Russia, who has a considerably shorter way to travel. Egypt may very well arrive already eliminated when they face Saudi Arabia in Volgograd. Again, another long trip, but at least in the same time zone, right? Uruguay begins in Yekaterinburg against Egypt. Uruguay counts with a very respectable offense and a footballing history that defies all explanation. They can beat all three of their opponents just by putting on their shirt and reminding them who they are in the sport. They have the same problem as Egypt in that they will be crossing several time zones during their trip. They play against Saudi Arabia and Rostov-on-Don, where they'll likely win and finish their campaign doubling back to Samara. World Cup organizers, would it have made more sense to go from Yekaterinburg to Samara and then to Rostov? This is stupid planning. Anyhow, I expect Uruguay to pretty much top this group, unless they get lazy, or Suarez decides to have dinner during one of these games again. So, here's how I see those scores going down. So, sure, Egypt dominated their African qualifying group. It's true, but consider their rivals. Uganda, Congo, Ghana, all nobodies. Except for maybe Ghana, a little bit. Uruguay qualified in a much tougher division against heavy hitters in the sport, and more or less did so comfortably without too much to worry about. The Saudis have a history and tradition of getting beat silly at World Cup, and Russia will overachieve simply because it has to, and maybe because they'll have a little bit of, FIFA officiating magic help in there too. For me, the choice is obvious. Uruguay first, Russia second, and the other two will walk like an Egyptian all the way home. Hope you enjoyed this quickie look at Group A. Join me next time for a look at Group B. Have an awesome day, and if you like this video, spread the word, my fellow footy junkies. Till next time, dear viewers.